So you would think, after 7 years and 250 films, we would have got the hang of this, wouldn't you? But you know, in all that time, none of us can ever remember changing the battery in the microphone. So there you have it. We had a weekend at Stangate and no audio on any of the film. Now Stangate's a pretty normal place to go if you sail on the Medway. It's the best anchorage, so nice and peaceful, and okay, the docks are at the end of the river, but it's a lovely place to go, in amongst the birds and the wildlife. And this time, we were going to have Steve and his friends with us on their boat, but his friends, for one reason or another, couldn't make it at the last minute, so Steve came with us. So it was also the first time we actually had guests sleeping on board. It's the first time we've had a boat big enough to make that sort of a comfortable and not awkward situation, and it worked really well. But that's not the reason for this film. The reason for this film is Lola. Now Lola's our cat. Now cat owners will know that cats tend to fall into one of several groups. They're either kind of human-like, and like dogs, do everything the humans do, or they're the kind of hunters that are out all the time trying to catch things, or they're just cantankerous and awkward and generally unhappy. They're generally the ones with the sharp claws as well. Or they're the inquisitive kind. They've got their nose into everything and they're always trouble. And then all of those. Some are out all the time, some sleep all the time. Cats are rarely perfect. But Lola's special like that. She's all of these things. She's a proper cat's cat when she wants to be, but she's equally happy having a cuddle and sitting down and watching the telly in the evening like the rest of us do. And because she's so special, we've actually taken her out in the car a few times, and she seemed to have enjoyed it. Gets to see a different part of life, quickly settles down, doesn't seem too stressed by the whole thing at all. So we thought we'd take her on the boat and see how she gets on. Now regular watchers on YouTube will know that there's several channels out there where there's cats on boats, but to my knowledge they're all kind of born and bred on boats. They don't know any different. And although they all seem fine and seem quite happy, Lola likes her freedom and likes to go out hunting and being nosy and that when she can. We weren't really sure how she was going to cope on board. Well, the first thing to note is she wasn't really scared. She accepted being put in a carry-all to get her on the boat. We sat her down on the table where we loaded everything up and she was quite happy. We opened it up, she stuck her head out and got out and had a nose around. She was a little bit nervous to start with, but basically quite happy, quite inquisitive. And she had to wander around the boat, and by the time she found Izzy's room and I guess some familiar smells, she settled down and went to sleep. Good start, we thought. So we anchored up, had dinner, she was no trouble at all. At night, she prowled around a bit, sticking nose in things, sleeping with Izzy and Jenny for one bit, and then sleeping with Hannah and I the next bit. But not really any trouble. We ended up feeding her on the table, which wasn't ideal. We really will have to sort that out. But at home, we're used to keeping Lola's food high up, seeing as Winnie can't jump, and then they both know whose food is whose, and it saves any arguments. On the subject of Winnie, she was fine with Lola being there as well. Seemed to accept it like normal. She did insist on telling Lola that it was her sofa and her cabin, and this was her rug and her bit of floor and so on. But once they'd got all those formalities out of the way, they both settled down to life just like it would have been at home. Now this particular weekend, there wasn't any wind, so there was no sailing, there was no flappy ropes, flappy sails, there was no leaning over. So she's got a bit to learn yet, but we did have the engine on and she didn't mind that. And although she was nervous outside, she did come out on her own and she settled down, being content to just be with us. I think it was the squawky seagulls and all the strange smells that probably made her feel nervous. But anyway, she seemed okay. So now we get to the real reason for this film. Is anyone else out there take their cat with them when they go sailing? It's one thing spending a night at anchor and a nice peaceful anchorage, and another thing going over the bumpy East Coast chop and spending weeks away. How do we think Lola's going to get on? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And then finally on that subject, this is going to be our first film with comments switched back on again. Woohoo! So, you really can let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you. So anyway, as ever, thanks for watching. This is Sailing with the Foxwell Family.